I don't think it was a lack of effort, because watching these guys every day, watching practice, being in some meetings and all of those things, watching their mindset, watching their attitude, I think things just didn't go right. Sometimes you look at the previous year, 17 with the advancing to the NFC Championship game, they got a lot of breaks. Even though there were injuries, they got a lot of breaks. And sometimes the ball has to bounce your way. Last year, the ball bounced away from them. You talk about the injuries. You talk about Cookie going out. You talk about the O-line. You talk about all of those things. You talk about, Ev being away from the team, what that did emotionally. All of those things, people say, well, you just plug and play. That's easier said than done. When you have a key cog to your football team in your locker room, be one of the leaders, it has an effect. And people are affected in different ways. So I think coupled with that, and even the start of the season, Tony Sperano, losing him, that played a huge part. So I think I'll couple it this way. Last year just was not our year. But the pieces are in place this year. You got some people healthy. You've got some changes. Change is always a part of football. If you're not changing to make your football team better, then Rick Spielman and his staff are not doing their job. And that's what they've continued to do. I like the pieces that they've put in place. And I am very, very, I'm not going to say cautiously optimistic. I am very optimistic about this football team for this year.
I think a lot of people are as we enter year 2 of Kirk Cousins, and I want to start with him as well. Kirk Cousins, same quarterback, same offensive coordinator. The Vikings haven't been able to say those two things a lot in the past, starting with the same offensive coordinator and quarterback as the year before that. How much of a difference do you think it'll make having these two have a full offseason together, and now we'll get a full training camp together between Stefanski and Cousins?
I think it's going to make a huge difference. I think Kevin Stefanski grew by leaps and bounds as an OC last year. Now, here is the wild card. You've got Gary Kubiak, who now is as an advisor to both Kevin and to Kirk. Let's face it. You've got a guy that's been in the trenches. He's been in the huddle. He's been between the lines. Been there, done that. A winning pedigree. He's done it. So the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge and confidence that he's going to bring in that quarterback room and that offensive room, it's going to be enormous. Now, just consistency by itself, they're going to grow by leaps and bounds. Now you add Kubiak into the mix, a veteran coach, a veteran player. This guy's been a head coach. Come on. What better scenario that you can think of to have two head coaches? Now Zim can focus on the team, and Stefanski and Kubes can focus on the quarterback, all of those situations, that offensive piece. Yeah, although Zim is the head coach, he'll have a say in things, but that's something that he can take away because you got Gary Kubiak. Now Stefanski in his second year as OC, Kirk, second year as a starting quarterback. I think it bodes well for this football team. I'm really excited about that piece of Minnesota Vikings football.
Yeah, and Gary Kubiak, you hit it on the head. This guy is a proven winner. He won Super Bowl 50 with the Denver Broncos. He's worked with some amazing quarterbacks. Clearly, in 98 and 99, he was the offensive coordinator with the Denver Broncos, so he's working with John Elway. So this guy has been there, and I think that's why the excitement around the team is, okay, we've got a proven champion in here, and this is the goal we're trying to reach. So very excited to see what Kubiak does.
Well, one other thing before we leave Gary, here's the other piece. You can have all of those accolades, you can have all of those accomplishments, but if your personality it doesn't blend in with the mix that you already have, it's a recipe for disaster. You look at the personality of Gary Kubiak. He's cool, calm, collect. He's as my former fraternity brother Stuart Scott would say, he's cool as the other side of the pillow. And that's the thing that I really, really like about it. Those are intangibles that you just can't find each and every day. You can plug some pieces into place and they just don't fit. You're trying to force a square peg into a round hole and it just doesn't work. But this seems to be working so far, and I really, really like what it's going to mean for the team.
And great point, Greg, and great insight as you tell us that this guy's personality fits, because I think a lot of people don't look at that aspect of things, and that's why we have you on. Great job by that. We're here with Greg Coleman, former Vikings punter and the now sideline analyst for the Vikings Media Network. I want to talk a little bit about the draft, some of the draft picks on this team. Garrett Bradbury, NC State, huge, buying that offensive line, being able to move Pat Eflon to his natural position. And then the wildcammer, Irv Smith. What do you like about these guys, and do you think they can have an immediate impact this season?
Pedigree, number one. His dad was a long-time player in the National Football League, a first-round pick. So he grew up around this game. He knows what it takes to be a pro. There's some things that you don't have to teach him. There's some things you don't have to coach him. And the fact that he's going to come in and play for this football team to have a 2 tight end offense, in certain situations, we're not going to be as predictable. So this is a huge, huge target for Kirk Cousins. And I really, having a chance to talk with her, during mini camp and OTAs and all of those things, he's not a wide-eyed rookie. Okay, he's excited about being on this football team, but there's some things that he's already experienced as being the son of an NFL player for a long period of time. He comes from a great college program, so he's prepared physically, mentally, emotionally. It's nothing but upside for Irv Smith Jr.
And what about Garrett Bradbury? What do you think he'll bring to this team, just for the offensive line purposes?
Double S. Come on. I know you got to ask the question. Okay, I get it. That's what they're paying you to do. But this kid is going to come in and solidify this offensive line. This is something, you talk about confidence, you talk about the straw that stirs the drink. It starts up front with the center and quarterback. And this kid comes in, he does not look like a typical rookie. He's taking control of the huddle, talking about a young leader already. I mean, so they are way ahead of the game already in what he's been able to bring for this football team. I mean, you talk about a lot of pieces in place, but it starts with the guy up front, and Garrett is going to be a solid player for a long, long time. And he can run. He can get out in front of the running backs. He can get down on that second level, keep his pads low. Everything that I've seen about him early on, I like already.
See, we got to ask those types of questions, Greg. You just gave me some good stuff on it. We didn't know much about Garrett Bradbury, what he's doing. We didn't know he's becoming a leader out here. This is why we're asking the questions. Let's talk about the defense really quick. Listen, it's been the image of this team since Zimmer has taken over, and they're really returning everyone besides Sheldon Richardson. I mean, you've got Danielle Hunter, you've got Linville Joseph. Anthony Barr was going to sign out here in New York and said, I want to come back to play for a championship with the Vikings. What are your expectations here for this defense that, obviously was very suspect in the beginning of the season? I don't know what happened. Maybe they just need to find their groove. But what's the expectation here going into the 2019 season with the fully healthy Minnesota Vikings defense?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question. Okay, bring me back to that question, but I want to get this off while it's on my mind.
Go.
Right?
Yep.
When you have players in free agency who are a doorstep away of signing a huge contract, millions of dollars with another team, and all of a sudden they come to the point of an understanding, man, I really like what we got here in Minnesota. I'd like to be a part of that. I'm willing to sacrifice dollars. Come on, in this day and age of athletes being about, hey, it's about me and my money, that tells you something. You had several guys who had the opportunity to bolt and to go somewhere else. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. There is something brewing. There's something special brewing with this football team. And when Anthony Barr made that decision, that was a huge marker for this football team. That's a huge marker in Mike Zimmer's hat, that this kid would give up, because you're only going to get 2 or 3 huge contracts. And for him to give up those kinds of dollars, that tells you. You talk about what creates, those intangibles. You talk about chemistry and all of those things. Those are the kinds of things that are not statistical. Those are the kinds of things that people don't look at later on, but those are the kinds of things that build continuity, that builds brotherhood, that builds fellowship, builds relationships, and before you know it, I mean, man, people do better with people that they like. And this bunch of guys, they like each other. They hang out together. They travel together. They do vacations together. I mean, you know, when we were over in London last year, you know, I was privileged to be in some of the circles with some of the guys in some of the different pockets and see how they get along. This is a great football team, and these little intangibles are really, really going to pay dividends when the shim hits the fan, because things are going to get tough. But that brotherhood and that fellowship and the relationships that they have, trust me, it's going to pay dividends. Now, you talk about this defense, a healthy defense. I think it's going to be solid. I think it's going to be solid from top to bottom. I think this defense will probably be as athletic as it's ever been. I think they're going to have to cut some good football players from that team. It's unfortunate that Hilton won't be there from the start, but he's a good young product.
Yeah. Just got Holton Hill suspended 4 games, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah. I hope he can get his life together. You know, those are things that happen in life, okay? Because he's a good football player, and he has a future if he can conquer that piece. But you go down the line, you look at nose tackles. You know, you got big fella back, Linville Joseph. You know, on the other side, Tom. You know, TJ. You got Jalen Holmes, Daniil Hunter. Come on, you got Ev Griffin back. You got the linebacker crew. You got the 2 best friends in Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks playing linebacker. You know, and Eric Wilson did a good job, and Ben Gideon, you know, on first downs. You go to the secondary. Now, if Zaid can come back and duplicate what he had 2 years ago, I think he's going to be solid. McKenzie made some strides. Amp Harris. Come on. Who saw this coming? Nobody saw Amp Harris coming in, replacing Sendejo, and he did a solid job. Trade Waynes is maturing. I really, really can't find a whole lot of weaknesses in this football team. And the rookie class is going to give him some depth as well.
Yeah, and I think Mike Hughes coming back is also going to help this team, because he seemed like he was starting. You know, the thing with the Vikings is, and I've always said this about his defense, it's solid, like you say. That's the word that you should use for this defense. But I would like to see them create more turnovers, be a little bit more aggressive, and I think Mike Hughes brings some of that to this team. You saw week 1, the pick 6. So I'm very excited. He's another guy that got hurt last year that kind of went under the radar, and he also was a punt returner. He was returning punts too.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We look at the first line guys. We haven't even talked about this kid yet, you know, because he was on the injured list. What he brings, the versatility that he brings to this football team in terms of punt return, kickoff return, you know, playing corner, playing safety, he can play wherever they need him to play in that secondary. So, are you going to miss Marcus Sherrills? Absolutely. But, you know, we haven't talked about special teams, but since we're there talking about Sherrills, Chad Beebe has an opportunity to step in and be special on special teams. Amir Abdullah, you know, on kickoffs, he's going to be vying for some playing time as well. But you know, the consistency with the kickers and the punters coming back, will there be a little battle with long snap? You know, the kid from the Air Force, Austin, against Kevin McDermott. But you know, I catch balls from Kevin McDermott every week. PATs, field goals, punts. Yeah. If I had a center like that, I probably would still be punting. Okay. So no kidding. I mean, I went through so many centers. I mean, anyway. But I think that's going to be a battle. Special teams is going to be solid. I really, really think they're going to be solid. They brought in, you know, a kicking consultant in the kid from down in Iowa. So, you know, I think this is going to be a good football team all the way around.
Good. Well, I'm happy we're hearing all of this here. We're here with Greg Coleman. I got 2 more left for you, and we'll let you go. We know you're a busy man. I wanted to get into your kicking career really quickly. How did you get into punting in your football career? When did you start